Hello, everybody, and welcome to another TTV interview. I'm Messa, joined today by.
I'm Tenebrae Invictus. It
There you
almost like
go, that's who I'm referencing. You.
okay, me.
And today we have the honor of sitting down to talk to Michael Black, who is a director slash editor at Pure Imagination Studios, formerly that of Threshold Animation, who's been responsible, or at the very least involved with, a variety of projects that the Lego Group has produced over the last decade or more, including but not limited to Lego Hidden Side, Lego Hero Factory, Lego Clutch Powers, and many, many, many more. So thank you very much for joining us today, sir. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
Fantastic. So if you wouldn't mind giving us a brief overview of what exactly your job responsibilities are, what they entail, and just generally what you're all about.
Yeah, I've been making content or I think specifically directing content for Lego Group for a while now, and kind of just as things come our way, which usually it's from one to the next, since they do require a lot of media to be produced. Yeah, it's just kind of as it comes in, I'll give notes on a script or a treatment, depending on the project. Some I've pitched myself, but and then essentially just take it from beginning to end. I'm pretty involved with the animatic process, storyboarding, editing the animatic, and working with the voiceover artists and all that. And ultimately, as we go from step to step, from layout to animation to final picture, kind of putting all the pieces together and working with all the different people involved. It's a lot of calling shots and making decisions and working that out with either somebody from Lego or Marvel or any of those places that are involved, and then finally signing it off and letting it out in the world, and then starting over on the next one.
It's funny when you mention like how many different projects Lego can throw at you, because when I was a kid, the first Lego theme I ever got super into was the Bionicle franchise. I remember back when I was a kid, it was like, oh, a novel concept for them to have a movie at all. It was the first time they ever did anything like that. And when I look at your IMDb page, it's just so many different forms of media. There's so many projects, from movies to shows to shorts. They really throw a lot at you guys.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
theme park rides as well now.
Yep, the 4D stuff. It's like, man. So what about you personally? Like, how did you get started in the industry?
I went to film school. I didn't finish. Had a somewhat unsatisfactory experience.
Oh, man.
I mean, I feel like it was more of a byproduct of the time than anything else.
Mhm.
It was, like a very transitory time in, film slash, digital video. And, like even it was funny. There were a lot of like just like old school guys teaching that were like, film's never gonna go away, man, and cutting on film is the best. And I was like, are you guys crazy? Because this is gonna change very soon. And
Mhm.
it was an interesting, like, kind of just time, because there was a lot of these guys that were just like, so entrenched in their ways. And and I was kind of going like, yeah, digital video looks bad now, but 10 years from now, we're not going to be having this conversation. And I believe I was right.
Yeah.
I'd say so. I think the world speaks to that.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of other stuff there too, but like a lot of it was, like I feel like I learned more with my fellow students than specifically from a class. It was a lot of just we would like come up with an idea for a film shoot, and then we would go shoot it, and then we'd critique it with each other, and like that was more of a valuable learning experience. And I was and at the time I was like, well, what am I paying for? Because I could do this
got the most
on
valuable
my own.
stuff practically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot more
yeah.
hands-on.
So yeah, another student and I basically were like, well, what if we just moved to LA and tried to get started? And later, let's see, I think we moved here in like May of 2002, and by the end of that year, I was working at on that show, The Proud Family.
Wow.
And it was like an assistant, editor position, but I knew the software, and at the time, like, it was a little less common for people to know like Final Cut at the time. I think it was, Avid was a little bit more popular, and for whatever reason, the studio was doing Final Cut, and I interviewed with them, and eventually got the gig there. And it's I can trace my entire career back to working at that spot, just because working there introduced me to other people who introduced me to other people, and moved me from one place to the next. And so it is interesting to know that I think at no point in any interview or anything did anybody say, and where did you get your degree?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's like
Never came up.
The right time, right place, and with the right skills too. Like having the skills spoke more than having a degree in this specific instance. So that's great.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all a lot of learning on site and learning on the job, and all that stuff kind of like even going to school. You're not going to come out and go, I have all the skills I'm ever going to need for the rest of my life. Like every single job is evolving and learning, and especially with technology, how much that changes year to year.
Yeah.
That's wild to me that you just like take the plunge and just be like, you know what? Let's just move to LA. Let's just do it. And then just like, it worked out, even if it was just assistant editor, like you got it, you got that done, you got your foot in the door, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and I mean, like everybody starts at the same level, out of school anyway. So, I think we just gave ourselves a couple year head start.
That's awesome.
Definitely. For a lot of I have a lot of friends that want to get into animation or already like went to school for animation. It does seem like LA is absolutely the spot to take that dive into it, since there's so many like animation studios out there.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny too, because I think the past year has really kind of erased even that requirement of like being in Los Angeles or anything,
right?
Because like you can it's clear, like time and space has no meaning anymore, because you can so much of the work is remote. And like even as it is, like I mean, I've been working from home for the past year, but like even still, even before, like we would have to get up really early in the morning or stay up late at night to interface with clients or studios that are all over the world. And we worked with like a Polish studio for this Marvel thing that I did last year, and we would have to have early morning calls with them. And we had a studio in India, and the clients in the UK and Denmark, obviously. And like those calls have to happen all the time. And so it's like you're only kind of removing one more step by not having to be in an office for that stuff.
You gotta wonder, even when COVID like ends up rolling over and society kind of goes back to normal, you gotta wonder how much of the culture of like working from home is gonna stick around now that people have like acclimated it into their
I mean, it'll be interesting, because I think it's proof that it can be done. And obviously, like I don't think the work has suffered. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw Soul, but on Disney Plus, there's a little like extra thing that's just how they did that whole movie from home, and it's like
Oh
if
dang.
Disney can do it,
Pretty much
we can
anybody
all do
can.
it.
Like, I have great respect for that, man.
Haven't seen Soul yet, but definitely seen a lot of the different companies talk about the capabilities that they've been able to have at home. Doesn't sound like they're able to do like everything quite to the same capacity, but
True,
it's
true.
still doable, and it's awesome that this time has been able to show the positives of there's still good things that can be done despite what goes on in the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we have to get it done, one way or the other.
Yeah. So from did you ever expect that you'd be working on Lego so much, like from two different studios now?
Definitely not. I mean, I think that, it's funny how it's really, become so much of my, work. Um, but yeah, it is interesting how it's kind of, flowed from one to the next. And, it's fun working with, like that set of parameters and that style. And, you know, also, I like playing with, building Legos and stuff. So, it's they're gonna be mad at me if I say Legos.
I was gonna say,
I know,
Uh-oh,
I know.
the cardinal sin.
I know. I usually catch myself, but
do they like
let
mandate
me.
that to you guys too? Because
Oh,
Creative Capers is talking
if I
about.
if I'm ever on a call, I'm always checking myself. But I should probably take that over again, just in case. But yeah, no, I enjoy. I've always had fun playing and building and collecting Lego sets, and much to the detriment of my bank account. But
Same.
Trust me.
yeah, and usually like I justify the bigger ones because I'm like, I'm only buying one. Granted, it's the Star Destroyer, but um, it's it's definitely a bad habit.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a question. I suppose would be if you at least somewhat casually enjoy it outside of work. Like, what kind of Lego sets do you like gravitate towards? Do you have any favorite themes? Ones that
Oh yeah,
grab your
yeah.
attention?
Star Wars is definitely my favorite. I have some Marvel ones, but I prefer like the mass. It's funny. I'm a child of the '80s, so they get me whenever there's something that's directly related to Star Wars. The '89 Batman
Hmm.
sets got me.
Yep.
I couldn't resist those.
For sure.
And especially with the Star Wars stuff, anything that has a Boba Fett in it, I'm gonna buy it.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's those are my weaknesses.
So here's the $1 million question to determine whether we can be friends and whether like we can continue having this civil conversation. Did you ever know about Bionicle?
It's funny. Like that one. I worked on the Bionicle movie,
Yep.
but I was a little bit more on the just on the post side of that one. But that one skipped me. I missed
Fair
that
enough.
one. Yeah, it's funny. Like it was one of those things too, where, like I guess like the fans weren't huge fans of that movie. Is that right?
I wouldn't
Because
say
it
that.
kind of it took some liberties, didn't it?
Well, it's because there was a trilogy made by Creative Capers, and Miramax, and it had a certain visual style. And then with Threshold and the movie that you worked on had a completely different visual style that looked like the
Mm-hmm.
toys. So it was kind of a shock to the system for the fans to see that and be like, okay, well, this looks nothing like the other films in the series. but it still has lots of fans. It's not hated or anything like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
loved it when I was, when I was watching it, and I'm about as diehard of a Bionicle
Yeah,
fan as you could possibly be.
I would actually say that's one of my favorites out of
I
the
agree.
4 movies,
Oh, cool.
and that's like one of the big things is that the animation style actually looked more like the toys themselves. Like, it can be hotly contested, but as to how they were animated, but the way that they looked, I really liked. I really liked that they were accurate.
I just think it makes sense. Like, I have nothing but respect for the people who did the trilogy, but
Yeah.
I think, like, at the end of the day, cynically, right, the shorts, the commercials, the movies, they're to sell sets, right? Like, they're extended marketing. I think that's inherently more effective when they look like the thing that they're supposed to be marketing.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Right, right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's always a fine line for various reasons.
But fair enough,
with,
you weren't a Bionicle
how they're depicted.
fan. So
Yeah,
thank you for
yeah,
joining
I mean,
us. It's been real. We'll see you
That's
next
the interview.
time.
Yeah,
No,
it's funny because like I think once I realized there was such a committed fan base, I felt like I was too late to the party.
That's a word. Committed fan base. We're a little bit crazy at times. Is
Yeah,
what it
no,
is.
hey, I'm a Star Wars fan, so I know the trials and tribulations of that kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of parallels there.
Yep.
So did you get to work much on the Bionicle movie? I don't remember how much you said your involvement was on it.
Not a huge amount. Essentially, at the time, once I went to start at Threshold, I was initially hired for just like a 12-week animatic edit, and that was just for the Clutch Powers.
Okay.
And so I started out on that, and I think what was essentially happening was that there was those two projects were happening in parallel,
Okay.
and there was supposed to be an editor for each one and then an assistant editor that was going to work on both. And the assistant editor that they hired it ended up not working out, and so since I was there, they said, well, why don't you stay on and finish these two projects, and then I ended up working on everything else from there. I mean, it's funny. I was supposed to be there for 12 weeks. I was there for 5 years. So sometimes things work out. Again, right place, right time.
For sure.
And so that one had started out. It was supposed to just be me working on that animatic and leading it, and then ended up kind of finishing them both. And I wasn't super involved with the Bionicle one, other than a few tweaks and edits through to the end, but not a lot of creative involvement.
Okay.
That's fair enough. Well, how was it working on Clutch Powers? Like, what was the extent for that? Because that's interesting. Because that was the first. I could be totally wrong. I don't want to spread misinformation. I think that was the first Lego film to use minifigures.
Oh yeah,
Because
that's
Bionicle was the only one before that.
Yeah, they really touted that as the first Lego movie. And yeah, no, that was really fun. I had worked prior with the director Howard Baker on these 3 films at the Jim Henson Studios that were like kind of like fractured fairy tales. What were they called? Unstable Fables. And so I was an assistant editor on those 3, and then when he got this gig to do Clutch Powers, I got on board with that. He recommended me for that, and so he and I worked together on that, and then many things after that. We still work together now. He's at Pure Imagination still, too, and yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from him, and kind of stuck around at Threshold and took my experience with Clutch Powers and what we did on that, and kept building off that.
I mean, fantastic. Clutch Powers is funny because, the character, just a little bit of trivia. Have you ever heard of Ninjago? Obviously you have, because you worked on 4D. Well,
Yeah. I know that they reference him a couple of times, don't they?
Well, they don't just reference him. He's in the show.
Oh,
He's
really?
a character in the show. Same voice actor, but his character lives on. Like literally, the episode that aired like a week ago had him in it. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh yeah, I had no idea. I knew that there was I remember hearing like a few years ago there was like a very oblique reference to him.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, so and so Clutch.
It was
I
more
don't even
subtle
remember if
back
they said
then.
his whole
for
name.
sure.
Yeah.
They did. They name dropped him, and then recently he started showing up. So that's
That's
funny how
that's
like
hilarious.
the legacy lives on.
Yeah, I feel like there's people that are gonna know Clutch for being an Ninjago character more than he
Oh,
had
that's
his own
funny.
movie. I think it's already happening at this point.
The kids of today aren't even gonna
Right.
know.
I wonder if that's why they pushed that Blu-ray release last year.
You know what? That was about the time. That's
Yeah.
probably why.
Huh. Interesting.
That makes
I didn't
sense.
even consider that up till now. All right.
So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. So before we move on to the next subject, I just wanted to like make clear when it comes to the duties between like directing and editing, how much involvement would you say there is with editing when it comes to the project versus directing it?
I mean, for me personally, there's no line. You know, like having come up as an editor, and then kind of through working with other directors and kind of, even going back to Clutch Powers and making suggestions for, oh, this would be a cool style for the shot, or pulling references for from other movies of like, oh, we could do something kind of cool like this, and just kind of the logical conclusion is just to do that for the whole thing. But for me, like, I'm for editing is just second nature to me now. Like
Okay.
like there have been several times where, oh, so and so intern wants to shadow you and see, watch you edit, and like I'll just be doing it, and like I don't have like one of those keyboards that has like the the keys that say what everything does.
Yeah.
Just because it's muscle memory at this point.
You
Yeah.
basically just know.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so like there's so many times where I'll be doing something, and then if somebody's shadowing me, they go, "Wait, how'd you do that?" And I go, I'm not sure. Like I can't
That's
like consciously describe it. I'm like, it's my index finger in this position, like.
Oh my god.
And so I'm like, I think it's R, no T, like that kind of stuff. And
That's
so,
awesome.
it's just like if I were to, I was telling somebody the other day, like I could see myself, if I had to pick one or the other, I could see myself editing somebody else's project rather than I could like work with another editor. I think just because I think if I'm going to sit there and ask them to do something, it would take longer than me just,
Doing
making that
it.
keystroke. And so, it's for me, like it's, the two are so blended, because, so much of, making like a joke land or an action land is based on that timing. And, I might go, 3 frames. Let's see. If I move this here, move that there, then this shot will work. Or, oh, I need to flip this to make this work. Or if I take these 3 shots out, then I have to, make this camera move differently in, this other shot. Like those kinds of things. Like I'm just always kind of tinkering to put things together. And, and it's especially tricky sometimes with the 3D stuff too, because, an edit may work in a 2D show, but it's too short in a 3D exposition, so like that's a whole other kind of I don't know, I guess discipline of knowing like I need to have like 10 more frames for this cut to work for a 3D show and that kind of stuff.
Interesting. That makes sense.
for sure. So I think
Especially for the
another.
theme.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, you can finish. I was about to change topics.
I was gonna say, like, with especially for, like, theme park stuff, it's such a different level of like stereoscopic 3D, like, as opposed to if you were seeing, there's so many times where, like, I would go to like a 3D movie and almost the entire time I'm like, is it 3D? And then I like take off my glasses. I'm like, yeah, it's a little blurry. And I put the glasses back on and I'm like, why am I paying extra money to see this in 3D? When like nothing is
Honestly,
really
though.
coming out.
Yeah.
And then, but for like these theme park shows, you can really push it and go very extreme with it, which is good because it doesn't have to work as a 2D movie. And what we've constantly said, like, the rule of thumb is a good 3D movie is kind of a bad 2D movie.
Huh. I mean, that makes sense. Because, like,
Yeah,
that's
because
really the
there's
only,
sometimes where you're
only
like,
way
why
to
are we lingering on this
No.
shot?
Hmm.
It's like when you try to make it good for both, you just end up compromising. At least that's
Yeah,
what
exactly.
I think with my no knowledge about the subject. It's like that's an interesting point though you bring up. It's like, what has been your experience working with the 4D stuff, like particularly with Lego and the projects, because that's probably some of the most unique stuff
Well, and
on your
that's
portfolio.
one of it's really funny. Like, if you go back to we did the Clutch Powers 4D, which was
Mhm.
kind of just on the heels of wrapping the movie, and we were uh like going back to that up till now. Like, they prior to that, there's always like 3 or 4 movies that they're cycling through, and now all of those old movies have been replaced, and so every single one that plays in the 4D part, theater in the parks, I've worked on. And so
Dang.
it's like, and between those and now the flying theater shows, it's just like I'm like slowly taking over all the media in the park.
That's awesome. I think
awesome.
the one that definitely comes to mind for us, the one that we've seen before, is the Ninjago one. Which,
Yes, we definitely did see that.
which I mean, we definitely found it goofy, but it's also because we only watched it on YouTube, and we weren't actually
Yeah.
there in the park to see it. So I imagine it's a very different experience if we're experiencing it the way it's meant to be.
Yeah, that one
Geek
that one
kids
works a
again.
lot better in 3D for sure. There's that one I wasn't fully satisfied with how it came out, but I think there's some fun stuff in there, and
I was
you know
impressed by a lot of the stuff. It was very cool, very unique.
yeah, it's a fun little piece, and like, it's nice that it kind of you know it sits in the canon a little, like just outside of it. I think, like, it doesn't necessarily impact anything since they kind of undo it all at the end.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, those bottle stories always work the best for stuff like that.
Yeah.
You were able to, as somebody who's seen every episode of the actual show, you guys did a good job of integrating and get the feel. Like
Have you
it felt
seen?
authentic.
Did you see uh the Day of the Departed, the Chinese version?
So that's on the list of stuff I wanted to ask you about,
Right,
because that's
yeah.
such a unique situation with that. We have seen bits of it, not fully. What was the deal with that? Because that's on your credits specifically
Hmm.
for the Chinese version.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I still don't, like, I guess it was kind of an experiment to see you know if it could be produced specifically for the Chinese market, or something. I think part of it had to do with the sort of spirit realm and how those are depicted
Yeah.
for Chinese media and stuff. And I think that was more or less what it came down to, was it needed to be slightly different. I don't remember exactly how different, but like, producing a lot of that stuff for Chinese media, it has to get approved by the culture board or whatever, and all that. So I think that one just had to go through that process a little bit more, specifically. But yeah, that one was weird. There were a lot of times where I was like, wait, why are we doing this? But actually, I thought that one turned out really, really good. I actually, not to toot my own horn, but comparing the two, I liked mine a little better.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I've observed from the few clips I've seen of it.
I
It
haven't
is-
been able to see it myself, but I actually just pulled up a Reddit thread and somebody was like complimenting the visuals that went into that version, so that's interesting. I gotta see some of it for myself.
Yeah, and
I've
I
seen
mean
that.
the funny thing is it's basically the same script. Like I think there's a few really minor changes, but um, if you watch the English one and then watch the other one, like the story beats are all the same, and I mean almost all the jokes are the same.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
But yeah, that one was a funny one, but I enjoyed working on that one a lot. That one was a fun one to edit too because you had so many sort of stories going, and that one actually really came alive in cutting all the disparate stories together and then having them come back together. And it's
I can
definitely one of
imagine
my
it's
favorite
fun
parts
to
about
edit
that.
something like that where it's like constant variety, in what you're doing.
Totally.
So, just curious, how did that one work in general? Like, did they already have the English one created, and then you had to edit like separate stuff into it, or how does?
No, that they
Those-
were basically completely independent of each other.
Huh.
I think apart from the script and the character designs, so we didn't have a lot to do in terms of design. We still had to build all the assets and everything on our side to
Okay.
use. But yeah, I mean they're kind of like mirror versions of each other in a weird way. But
Okay.
So the script was basically just presented, and then you guys just both just did it from that.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we
There.
weren't like collaborating with M2 or anybody.
Fascinating.
Yeah. It was it was an interesting one. But it was fun to really kind of get to work on a Ninjago show. I got to direct all the voices and for the or that was for the 40 one. For that one, that one was interesting because the voice work, we had, I think it was like my voice and the modelers and a bunch of people at our studio doing the temp dialogue, and then we had to swap all of that out for the Chinese dialogue and kind of re-edit the animatic a little bit where needed, just so that it felt natural and not like a dub.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, that
Yeah,
always
I don't-
struck me
I don't-
as one
I
of
don't
the most
speak,
unique situations.
Yeah, it was definitely a strange one.
All right. Now I think we can move on to the fun one, the one that we love dearly. Hero Factory. Let's talk about Hero Factory. 'Cause Hero Factory was Bionicle's successor. So
Right.
this thing that we grew up with, our favorite toy line had been abruptly canceled, and in its place was this weird like new thing about making heroes in a factory, and you were most responsible and involved in the Hero Factory Brain Attack special, correct? That was the one you actually
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, I edited a bunch of the episodes, and then I think the finishing that one was the last thing I did at Threshold, and that was like, it was kind of, I think we did, I forget how many episodes we did, like 10 or something like that.
I think it was
Maybe
10.
less. Yeah, so I didn't work on a whole lot on the first few, but then yeah, I was pretty involved with that one. I thought that was a fun show. It seemed like everybody, again, like I didn't read too closely into it, but a lot of
Probably for the
people.
best.
I mean, kind of like what you're saying, that it was people were just mad that it wasn't Bionicle.
People treated it very unfairly.
Yeah.
I was never one of them mercifully. I always gave it a chance, but yeah, people were not kind, and it spoke to nothing of the quality of the show. It was literally just people upset that somehow as if it was to blame instead of, corporate mandates and like business decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like it had nothing to do with Hero Factory itself. It was just the product.
It's about selling toys, man.
Yeah, for whatever reason. But the shows were enjoyable. They were always fun and goofy, and lots of funny moments that we always remember and call back to.
Yeah, I mean we were teenagers by this point when it came out, so we're not necessarily the intended audience by the time the show comes out. So we've had a lot of laughs, probably not for the intended reason while watching it, but I mean we still hold it very fondly, and we're glad that you were able to work on it. We're able to talk to you about it.
Yeah, that's one of the things. As a fan, not as a pseudo, Z-list podcaster professional. That's what I was excited to talk to you about, because like I love all that stuff, and I'm bummed out because the only way to watch them, because they never fully gave a DVD release to any of them, including Brain Attack, to my knowledge. The only way to watch them is Lego's YouTube channel, where they've uploaded them in a glorious, wonderful 240p quality.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
I know.
Which burns me up inside.
Well, and the upsetting thing is like, we worked on those in high def, and so like there are HD masters, and one day
I hope, like, they're never going to release them on DVD at this point, but I hope somehow there's able to be a version.
I mean, you would think that it wouldn't hurt them at all to just upload the HD version to YouTube and let them be seen in proper. I mean, gosh, we spent so much time, fixing things and color correction and everything, and it looks like, like it was made 30 years ago.
Yeah, we were watching it. We were watching Brain Attack last week, and it's very compressed. It was very sad to watch it in that format, but I think he did a really good job on it. I feel like the editing and the directing is very tight when it comes to executing the vision of probably what there was to work with, and I think it turned out awesome in that aspect. I mean, it's definitely cheesy and goofy and all that stuff, but when it comes to like the visual part of it, I think you did an awesome job with putting it together.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was a fun one, and that was the one that was like the first one that I got to like actually direct, and so of course I like put 150% into it to really show off and have something that I could show that I can direct. And so
I mean, again, I feel cool. Like it's the commonality, right? Like you were talking about with the Ninjago special, and the thing that made that rewarding was having a bunch of different stories going on. That one was the special that had all the different creatures and all the different regions of the world and all the different planets get infected, and there were so many like unique vistas. There were like the swamp and the lava creatures, and the underwater areas. Like there's just a bunch of scenery pieces, so it never got boring, I guess.
Yeah, we packed a lot into 22 minutes.
Yeah, it's like very to the point and paced well, like surprisingly. Think it got the point very across very well about, and wrapped up the story very neatly for a 22 minutes or however long it is.
Yeah, and it's also, I don't know if you even know this, but yours was the last one that was released that had the same voice cast.
Yeah, I know they did a few more after that, but I think they were, trying to...
They did one more, and it was from a different studio, and they had an entirely different voice cast, and they just abruptly canceled it. So yours was the last, like, true story for that theme, which is a trend we'll come back to later. But you seem to have a way of like sending things out on a high note, Hero Factory.
Yeah.
Inside, but
Bionicle.
Yeah, oh, you're right. You're right. No. Oh my goodness. So what we're actually saying really is everything you touch turns to dust.
Michael D. Black is the finisher.
I guess so. I think those decisions are made long before I get involved.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Do you ever think about like the star power that's attached to when you're editing this stuff? Because like Hero Factory originally had like Mark Hamill, Henry Winkler, like some big names attached to the voice cast. Does it ever like cross your mind when you're like working on this project, like kind of like the prestige that gets added to it?
Sometimes, like, I mean, it's funny, like, I mean, obviously Mark Hamill, that was huge, and I've gotten to direct him a few times, which is always cool. Yeah. And he also like the nicest guy in the world. He's so good too. Like he's just like one of those guys who you're just like, he's great. But it's funny too, because like there's just as a fan of animation, like working with like Troy Baker or any of those like kind of classic voiceover guys.
Oh yeah.
I'm sometimes more in awe of them than it's like, oh hey, like so and so celebrity wants, and I'm like, okay, neat, like, or I'm like, who, but yeah, like Troy Baker or Kevin, that was embarrassing, Batman,
Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, Conroy, gosh. I got to direct him once, and that was like the coolest thing, because like I have nothing to do, because he reads it and you're like, that's what Batman sounds like. Carry on. But like seeing those guys, like they're so talented, and it's just amazing to see. Like those are the ones that I think I get more intimidated by than I don't know.
That makes
whatever
sense to me.
Yeah, that's just the stuff I geek out about.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
Though directing Bryce Dallas Howard was pretty fun, because she was hadn't really done any VO work or cartoon voices, and she was like so excited to do it and so game. But yeah, I thought she did a great job for Jurassic World.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
That's really cool, thinking about what you're able to do as like a director, that you're able to work with the voiceover actors, like the voice actors, when you're doing this stuff. Like I think that probably went over our heads, or at least mine personally, when it came to thinking about what you do. But the fact that that's part of it is really cool, and that you're able to have those moments of meeting these people.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It's and it's nice, because usually so much is just like in front of the computer, and working that way, or with the handful of people that you work with on a usual day-to-day basis. But like just getting to do voiceover for a few days is it's like a fun break.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time. It's time we talk about the most recent one, the culmination, hidden side.
Yeah, that's what brought us all. It's what brought us all here.
Yes,
this whole interview is because I posted about Night of the Harbinger on Reddit, because there isn't much of a hidden side community, to be honest. There's only like 5 fans. You could probably count all of them on one hand.
Yeah, I was looking on your YouTube channel and noticed that all of the hidden side views are significantly lower than everything else.
Oh,
yeah.
So you were scoping us out. Fair.
I did send him a link at one point to the channel a while back. So, but you responded to the Reddit thread, and you're talking about it was a blast editing this, or like creating this. I'm like, wait, hold up. In this random subreddit with like where everybody's posting about playing the mobile game, and the one time I post about it to the small community, you're there.
Really there was no there's no like subreddit for the show or anything, and so it was mostly people talking about the game. But I was trying to gauge the reaction, Because I was stuck at home during the pandemic. I didn't have much else to do. So
I mean, look, here's the thing, right? As somebody who's in tune with the community, people like Hidden Style a lot. The people who gave it a chance really liked it. It was always held down by, not being afforded the same, budget and time allocation as its, contemporaries, specifically, Ninjago. Ninjago is like Lego's, poster theme, and it gets the network broadcast, 30 episode season, 12, 13 seasons TV show at Hidden Side gets webisodes. So it was never a mark against Hidden Side's quality, just its reach. I think that limited it from getting a lot of fans.
yeah, I mean, it was it's a unique style of show. I give them credit for at least branching out stylistically. I mean, if you watch that first, I think they call it the trailer, but we always called it like episode 0.
Yeah,
which is kind of the proof of concept. And like that, I think they were pushing the style a little bit further than I think most people. It's interesting, like you play that and it's a very divided reaction. People are either super into it or not at all, and I think we kind of hit the right balance. Going from that, but it was also like, I don't know, significantly more involved to do it in that style. But it is. It was. I thought it was a really cool looking show, and definitely a cool style that hadn't been really done with Lego before.
Definitely.
Yeah. I was pretty into it from the start. I'm friends with one of the designers, or I guess we're friends, but I got to go with him to like the launch of it at the Lego store, where they had like all the sets showed up on the shelf for the first day, and that was awesome. So I've been pretty engaged with the theme from the beginning of it, and I always kind of felt I do like that there are a lot of webisodes for it, like the YouTube videos. I think it was awesome. The Face Your Fears one is an awesome one, just because of like, I really liked the 2D kind of, I don't know if cell shading is the word for it, but I really liked the artistic filter that was added to the 3D animation. But at the same time, I felt like because they were only like 3 minutes each, it didn't really get to dive in as much into the characters. And that's why I really like the Hidden Side special, the Night of the Harbingers, because, we finally got to see them, interact with each other on a more dramatic scale compared to the YouTube show. So I kind of felt like I wished the webisodes were just one big special or 2 specials or whatever, so that it would have had more condensed time to interact with each other, I guess.
Night of the Harbingers for sure, like the best thing. It's like the culmination.
Yeah, well, and I think that that one benefited, like you say, from having like room to breathe. Like that was I think the biggest. Like you say, like it was super hard too to make those, because they did have to be 3 minutes, and like some of the scripts were like 5 or 6 pages, and like you read some of those scripts too, like you read them, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be so cool, and then like you realize like, oh, this really has to get condensed, and this really has to get squeezed down into this 3 minute time frame, and that was one of the biggest challenges was what do we cut.
I don't envy that work.
Yeah.
That was tricky, because some of the animatics would come out 5-6 minutes long, and it's like, well, cut out half of it.
Oh man, dang.
How do we do that? And so that really and that was it comes down to budgetary limitations, because if you say, oh well, this one can be a little bit longer, then that one, then suddenly you've blown your budget. But it sort of works for that time, for that setting, more or less. I agree that yeah, they're definitely like it's almost like as soon as you're into it, it's over. Which is I guess you leave them wanting more.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that the Night of the Harbinger really benefited from being able to like have those longer, extended, joke montages or, like one of my favorite bits is the Rami, um, you know, video
Oh
montage
yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
was just
like,
thinking of that
classic,
right now.
and
classic.
that would have been half of an episode of, the YouTube show, and we would have had to have cut that down to, a few seconds, and it wouldn't have been the same. But
Yeah.
I love that I was able to like let those jokes have room to breathe, and some of the scares too. You didn't really. It was too. There was. I don't think there's really any jump scares in the 3 minute shorts.
No.
But that was when it was like, oh, you get to do the 44 minute. I was like, oh, I can make jump scares. I can I can let there be some moments in here that are let this these kind of atmospheric moments happen, which you couldn't really do on the 3 minute.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, I cannot speak any. I mean, I have some criticism, but of Night of the Harbinger, but I would say for the most part, holy cow, that was the best thing for Hidden Side. I'm sad that the best thing for Hidden Side was right at the end, but I
I mean,
really
hey, it's
Yeah,
better to have
and
that
I'm
happen because
the
it
the
leaves
thing
with a
that
positive
I'm
feeling.
the thing that I'm also bummed about too is like it's not available anywhere. Same problem as the other ones is like I think it was up on Cartoon Network for just the one day
yeah.
and then gone.
They do have like people record it and put it on YouTube, but like that's not it. It doesn't look bad, but it's still not like an official source for
Yeah.
it. But oh yeah, that Rami segment is freaking hilarious. Just the dumb things like pinning the tail on the donkey and all that other
Hmm.
stuff. Like just things you wouldn't even think about are that exciting to cheer about, but you got the crowd going crazy. Another thing that I really like is before they work with Neymar Reem, where Jack and Parker are arguing with each other and like yelling about who's best friends with who and that sort of thing. Like that's not a moment that would have been imaginable in the webisodes in like the 3 minute
Right.
shorts. And I just really liked that it was able to have that emotional build up throughout the special, so that it could pay off like that. And yeah, that definitely made me pretty wishful, wishing that there was like just another big special before that or something like that, so you could have that kind of emotional exchange.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
All of that stuff was definitely it was great to like sink my teeth into and really get to develop, um, and like even uh, some of that was kind of it was like one of those things where you're just like, well, this is the chance to really have these moments and expand on these characters and let them have their differences and their argument
If you don't
and
do
then
it
get back
now,
together. Yeah.
you
yeah,
never will.
yeah.
Did you know making it that it would be the last thing for the theme? That it would like close it out?
No, but I think as we were finishing, it was kind of like I think because there's always that sense of like, well, where are the toys going?
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not if that's going to be like a set for next year,
Yeah.
you know that pretty far down the line. So
Hmm.
I think we got a pretty good sense that it wasn't gonna come back.
Got it.
Dang.
And it's
Yeah.
a shame.
I mean, hey, it's it might not have a huge community, but I feel like the people that do like it, because there are some out there, they would have a much worse feeling had that special never happened. At least kind of
Yeah.
having that as like a proof of concept for like what it, could have been under different circumstances, I think is awesome because it leaves
Yeah.
people feeling good. Like I'll stake the claim with all my limited, market knowledge, if they had allotted a larger budget to it to where it had just been a cartoon show instead of a web show, I guarantee it would probably still be around and would be for years, because the quality's there, the visuals are there, the talent was there. It was literally just the formatting, I think, held it back. If it was a bunch of stuff like Night of the Harbinger, it would have been like super successful.
Yeah, and, honestly, like I think it would have been, with the game and the apps and the interactivity, like all those ideas were there. Like I'm curious, like what the kind of popularity of that was, but
people seem to love it. They're keeping the augmented reality technology with like the app and stuff. They're integrating that into other properties. Time will tell if they're any good, but they're sticking.
It's a great idea. I mean, it works really well too.
Yeah, there's another theme that's coming up now called video, and we kind of joke that Hidden Side got sacrificed at the altar for video, since it uses the same like AR technology to do like very similar ideas.
It's just a bunch of random characters doing music videos.
Yeah.
Bring back Hidden Side.
They gotta start working on their TikToks and
literally.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's all it is.
Oh boy.
Oh well.
So
it is what it is.
The only thing that we really had to pick about Night of the Harbinger would probably be Neymar Reem himself. and that's because Neymar Reem talks about how for eons he's been dragging the Maw to different planets and like different dimensions and stuff to eat said dimensions, and then at the end he's like redeemed of his problem, like he's calling them friends at the end. I mean, I watched it again, and I know that he mentions he's ran out of empty places for the Maw to go to, and like even and Parker's like, you're not its master, you're its slave, servant. And I think that that was definitely intended to absolve him of being actually a bad person, but it was just kind of like you said, convenient that he didn't turn out to be bad in any form at all after what he's done.
It's hilarious to me because I go through the whole special and then like they get to that reveal and like it's meant to make him like sympathetic, and I'm just like, so you just genocided like countless worlds is what I'm hearing. But then it was like, oh no, wait, they're empty. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's like in the superhero movies, right? When they're like trying to say that there's not going to be civilian casualties, it's like, oh, that port where we're having the final battle, that port is abandoned.
Right, yeah.
It's funny to me. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a little lazy. We evacuated the city.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I think also that he talked about going to different worlds and like taking unlimited resources from other places, and it just kind of has oversight. And then all the spirits, like all the ghosts, come out of the Maw, and he's like, oh, those are from like before my time of dragging it around. It's just it's just kind of funny that
I guess it's interesting because I guess it's implying that the Maw could just eat empty planets. And then I think the funny thing is like, if you really think about it, is he's like, oh, I've run out of empty worlds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, there's 8 planets in this solar system. Why not go munch on Venus and Mercury before
I never thought about that.
Yeah, so I don't know if they need to be like life bearing or Goldilocks planets.
That's hilarious. I love that.
They can't be too hot, they can't be too cold for the Maw. They got to be just right.
Oh my goodness.
Certainly something to consider.
But yeah, no, I love the the ideas of like the ghosts that kind of are like these weird creatures that live inside the Maw now, and they're just like these like funky aliens from all over the galaxy, and that one was fun to design because it was just like open it up to the the art department and be like, just design some funky creatures. Like I think they kind of remind me of like like the the art when the art sculptures come to life in Beetlejuice.
Mm-hmm.
They have that kind of like weird, elongated proportions and weird things, and I don't know, that was fun to come up with.
For sure.
Yeah, I was joking with Meso and I's common friend that is like, did you see those things that came out of the maw? Like, maybe the maw was doing us a favor eating those. Like,
Right, yeah.
those are kind of horrific, but yeah, they're awesome.
The mall was the real hero. Everyone's
Right.
the hero in their own story.
But yeah, that was Night of the Harbinger was fantastic, and you did a great job with it.
Yeah, honestly, thank you. Like, it's good to have something just to kind of close something out and have a sense of like, well, it could have been worse. We could have not had this and just had the other stuff. It wouldn't have left nearly as big of an impact. So there are people out there.
Dozens
Get
of
something
us.
positive out of it. Dozens
Right.
of us.
Literally dozens.
All right. Well, we're about to hit the fabled hour mark if we haven't already, just barely.
Yeah, we're just there.
So I'd like to say thanks for coming on. In the vein of like finale questions, I don't know. Are there any things you'd like to share or tease within the confines of confidentiality? Any
Yeah,
cool
no,
projects on the horizon?
they sort of officially announced this week there's going to be a new ride opening at Legoland Windsor that I've been working on. Actually, I had to drive down to Legoland, California to test it yesterday.
Oh, fun.
And so yeah, since they have the theater, I directed this Lego Movie, flying theater ride that opened in Florida 2 years ago, and it was supposed to open March of 2020, and we all know how that turned out in California. And so it's been sitting there, waiting to open for a year now. And I think supposedly if we get in the red tier, whatever tier is the next one, they'll start opening things up. But they're gonna have this ride, the one that I did 2 years ago is gonna open in California in May, maybe, and then the one that I'm doing right now is going to open in May in Windsor again, maybe. I think like even the release thing that they put up yesterday, I think it was like May 29th asterisk. So it's but yeah, it's going to be an interesting project. It's called Lego Mythica. And it's not based on an
cool.
existing property or anything. It's exclusively for the theme park, and it's sort of like a world where, the things that you make out of Lego come to real life in this other dimension. And so it's sort of like, the idea of like the power of imagination breathing life to these creatures and things. And so there's going to be a flying theater, and it's going to be a whole section of the park. But there will be a flying theater ride, which is going to be very fun, and a 4D show that'll be at all the parks. Once they're open.
That's awesome.
That sounds like a lot of fun and a very creative premise.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because it's sort of like there's not a lot of Lego in the content. There's Lego DNA to it, and you see some things that are built out of Lego magically transform into these like living, breathing, organic creatures. So it'll be interesting.
For sure. All right.
Definitely. Is there anything?
Great confidentiality and share all your other cool projects.
Yeah, that's it for now.
Well,
Alright.
I mean, in that case, is there anything like that you've made in the past that you'd like to highlight at all, or just anything that you'd recommend we or the audience watch?
There's also there's yet another 4D show that I've done that's Marvel based. It's more of a kind of CG live action kind of looking piece that was also supposed to open in March of 2020, and has been sitting idle since then. But once the Madame Tussauds are open again, it'll be playing in LA, New York, Las Vegas, Singapore, and London.
Oh wow.
So keep an eye out for that as well. Hopefully that'll be opening soon, because that's one of those things too. It was like, hurry, 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 we gotta get it done before everything shuts down. And then it's like, take your time.
Yeah, never mind. Everything shut down.
Yeah. Certainly didn't think it was going to be shut down for a year at that point, but
Mm-hmm.
here we are.
Unfortunately, it is what it is.
But yeah, I think that's all I've got. That's coming out in the next few months.
Fair enough. Well, I think that
Well,
about
thanks for
wraps
having
it
me.
up. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
a fun
thank you.
talk, learning how you're the harbinger of doom for all the
Right.
things we
The
enjoy.
finisher.
Right. Yeah.
So what you need to do now, you need to get a job at Ninjago, working on the TV series, so
Yeah.
that can come to a glorious conclusion.
Exactly. I'll direct the Swan Song.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir, for coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks, guys.
It was a fascinating talk. And thank you, everybody, for listening to this TTV interview. If you have any comments on what was discussed today, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below or on the TTV message boards at board.ttvchannel.com. And that's basically all for today. Thank you for listening. I'm Meso.
I'm Envy.
And thank you to Michael Black for coming on today.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great one, everybody.